Hi, my name is Brianna Young. I am in Dr. Tagiuna's research methods class, and my research is on the front stage and backstage of homeschooling, parental involvement, socialization, and student success. The problem of my research is the modern homeschool movement began in the 1970s when John Holt, an educational theorist and supporter of school reform, began arguing that formal schools focused on rote learning created an oppressive classroom environment designed to make children compliant employees. With the new shift of the movement, homeschooling has now become under-researched in regards to the areas of parental involvement, socialization, and student success. My deficiency statement is, while many studies of homeschooling are focused on academic success, studies on the process of homeschooling is understudied, in particular how homeschooling presents a different dynamic of being a student in a family setting. My purpose statement, the purpose of this research is to see the effects of homeschooling and determine if these effects cause a positive or negative influence on their socialization, success, and parental involvement. Using Goffman's theory, this research explores the front stage, that is the actual process of studying at home, and the backstage on how children negotiate their role as being a student and a child at home. The significance of the study is looking at this data will help determine whether or not things like income, sex of first parent, sex of child, relation to child, and education completed by parent and marital status of first parent affects different aspects of homeschooling and home life. This study is significant because most people tend to have a negative outlook on homeschooling without even looking into the effects of it. I used Goffman's theory of dramaturgy, which talks about the different stages in life being the front stage and the backstage. In the 1980s, the course of this movement changed as evangelical Christians shared their voice that public schools were satanic hothouses. These new homeschoolers took an antagonistic outlook towards public school administrators, and they weren't willing to cooperate with the public schools. In those cases where homeschoolers faced challenges, organizations founded by Holt and Moore offered help in mediating with local officials and, if needed, legal aid. It is nearly impossible to uncover exact statistics or percentages regarding how many school-aged children were engaged more of their time in home-based education than in school-based education. In recent years, according to research, there has been a massive increase in the amount of families choosing to homeschool their children. This expansion is significant in many Western countries, but is especially noticeable in the United States. My research question and hypothesis is whether there is a significant difference in the effects of the front stage and backstage of a child's life who is homeschooled. I hypothesize that the homeschooled children are able to set apart the front stage and backstage of their life, and that there will be a significant difference between the dependent and independent variables. The data set that I use for my research is collected from the survey, the Parent and Family Involvement Survey. Because the PFI survey was mailed to households after they responded to the screener questionnaire, the unit response rate for the PFI reflects both the household screener response rate and the PFI response rate. Homeschool students in this report are defined as school-aged children, ages 5 to 17, who receive instruction at home instead of at a public or private school. The PFI collects data about students who are enrolled in kindergarten through grade 12 or are homeschooled for equivalent grades and asks questions about various aspects of parent involvement in education, such as help with homework, family activities, and parental involvement at school, such as attending a school or class event. These are my dependent variables, the front stage and backstage variables. Things like importance of location, cost, reliability, learning activities, child interaction with other kids, caregiver availability, number of children in group, number of family recommendations, and religious orientation are the front stage variables that I took into consideration. The backstage variables are time spent on arts and crafts, eating a meal together, minutes spent each time reading to the child, time spent reading to the child, and sang with the child, time child has been told a story, and times child has been taught letters, words, or numbers in the household. My independent variables are child sex, first parent sex, marital status of the first parent guardian relation to the child, first parent guardian highest grade level completed, and total income. Table 2 shows the results of front stage variables. A one-way ANOVA was conducted to compare the different front stage activities of homeschooled families by looking at the extended education programs outside the household, such as programs based on child interaction, location, cost, caregiver availability, learning activities, type of children and group, reliability, number of family recommendations, and religious orientation, and compared them by the sex of the child, the first parent sex, marital status, relationship of the first parent, their education, and income. Table 3 shows the results of the backstage variable. A one-way ANOVA was conducted to compare the different backstage activities of the homeschool families, and then the dependent and independent variables that I just mentioned. The independent variables, marital status of the first parent education, and total income have a significant impact on the backstage variables, along with the front stage variables. Marital status of the first parent had a significant impact on time spent in arts and crafts, having dinner together, minutes spent reading to the child, time spent reading to the child, and times child has been told a story. The significance of the impact was positive. Therefore, married couples spend more time with their children in arts and crafts and having dinner together, and along with the other ones. The highest education level of the first parent had a significant impact on time spent in arts and crafts, minutes spent reading to the child, time spent reading to child, time staying with child, and times child has been taught letters, words, and numbers. So the higher the education level, the more important these are, and the more time spent on these dependent variables. Total income had a significant impact on time spent in arts and crafts, minutes spent reading to child, times spent reading to child, time staying with child, times child has been told a story, and times child has been taught letters, words, and numbers. This was also a positive impact, so the higher the income, the more significant these things were positively. Marital status of the first parent had a significant impact on child interaction, location, cost, caregiver availability, learning activities, number of children in group, reliability, number of family recommendations, and religious orientation. So this is the effects on the front stage variables. So these were also positive. So marital status, in relation to marital status, married couples tended to have a more importance placed on child interaction, location, cost, and caregiver availability, learning activities, number of children in group, reliability, number of family recommendations, and religious orientation. Same thing with the education. The higher the education, the more importance was placed on the front stage variables. Same thing with income. The higher the income, the more importance that was placed on these aspects. Yeah. The data showed that being married, having a higher education, and a higher total income caused there to be more of a focus on the logistics of homeschooling, like location, cost, and caregiver availability. And it also led there to be a higher importance placed on the backstage aspects of homeschooling, such as time spent on arts and crafts, reading to the child, and being taught letters, words, and numbers. Also, if we were to look at, there was minor significance in the first parent sex. So these were positive as well. So, which means that, or these were negative actually, which means that if the first parent is female, they tend to put more importance on location and cost, and the number of children in the group, and the number of family recommendations. These were actually all negative, so whereas these weren't necessarily significant, it shows that if the first parent is female, then there is more chance that they put importance on the front stage variables. The backstage variables also showed that if the first parent was female, then there was more of an importance on reading to the child, singing to the child, But if the first parent was male, they tended to spend more time in arts and crafts, having dinner together, being told a story, and being taught words, numbers, and letters. And these are my resources.